Hey young adults, I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation today with one of our staff members. We shot this before COVID started, so obviously things are a little bit different now, but I think there's still some really great stuff that you can pull out of this, some key takeaways that you can learn from. So I hope that you really enjoy today's conversation. Thanks. Hey young adults, Pastor Josh here, and I'm here with my friend Ange, and we're going to be talking a little bit today just about her role at the church, the different ministries that she's involved in, how she even got involved with Sanctus Church. So I'm really excited for this conversation. Ange does a lot of work in ministries that are very much close to my heart and what God's doing in our young adult ministry. So Ange, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about what your kind of official role is here, and even like you've been at Sanctus for a long time, which is incredible.
Forever.
Yeah, tell us about that, like the different even roles you've had over the years and how you got to the one you're in now.
Sure. So I've been here, I think it's almost 16 years now.
Awesome.
And the very first role that I had, actually, I had my first daughter, and I had just finished a maternity leave, and the woman who was working at the very front desk in the office was going to be going on to maternity leave, and so I heard about it and I applied. So I got that administrative role, sitting at the front desk, answering phones, and at that time, writing out a bulletin, because we did a weekly bulletin that long ago. And so I did that for a 1-year contract and was ready to do something else because my degree is actually in counseling.
Okay.
And so I would sit at the desk and people would come in and I would start talking to them about their problems and what was going on in their life, and almost counseling at the desk, and someone would come in with a delivery or something. And so I realized, God was prompting me that there was another ministry type of role that I ought to try and pursue. And we were talking quite a bit at the church. We were calling it the City of Hope, but it was basically built around the verse where we're a city on a hill, and not to let your lamp be hidden, but rather to be able to engage in mission. That's the terminology we use now, but we were starting to talk about that, and there was a role around local engagement that was starting.
Okay.
And so that was the next role that I applied for and got, and started to help really to mobilize people in our congregation to go beyond the church walls, to then move and try and get to know agencies in our community that were looking for volunteers, and encourage them to get involved with those. And I did a lot of traveling really to find out, well, what agencies actually existed, where were the gaps that were not being met, and what causes existed, what were churches already doing. So it's more like a research type role, and encourage people to get involved. And then that actually became, global engagement became a part of my role as well, and then overseeing what then became local and global engagements. And at that time, we supported many missionaries, and so needed to bring some refinement and some focus, mostly because people were not engaged. I would say young adults specifically were coming in to the church and saying, well, who does this church really care about? What are they actually doing beyond the walls, and what's going on? And so I kind of heard the cry from young adults, and this was so long ago. I was a young adult then too. And so I was really motivated to say, I need to figure out, like, how do we get, at that time, my friends involved, and what is it that they're passionate about? And so we started doing some just kind of information gathering, fact gathering, listening to people, and finding out, well, what are the causes that people most cared about? And that's when local and global engagement became what it was, being based on causes. And then just last January, so only for 1 year now, I have come into a new role. And so my role now is to oversee all groups and congregational care for all of Sanctus. So that's what I've been doing now. And so my role around this now is creating the content for sermon series based connect groups, as well as connect groups on site. So we have something called Women Connect that runs on Wednesdays. And then groups also includes freedom sessions, which primarily Jake Dennett, the care specialist, oversees, but that's still under care. And then Alpha,
Yeah.
And so I get to be involved in all those things.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, we did a video with Jake, and he was talking a bit about Freedom Session. And he described Freedom Session as being very similar to Alpha. So I'd love to hear more just about Alpha and kind of why you love Alpha. And even for some of our young adults who maybe have never been a part of an Alpha or even heard about what Alpha is, could you just tell them kind of what's the pitch on what Alpha is about and why they might be interested in being involved with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I absolutely love people, and I care so much about people's stories and what is impacting their lives, which makes sense as the care pastor that I should care that way. But I also care very much about what's going to happen to a person after this life. This life is temporary. My life verse is 1 Peter 3:15. Always be prepared to give a reason for the hope that you have. And I find that Alpha is one of the easiest ways for people to give a reason for the hope that they have. Right. And so, quite simply, Alpha is this amazing quality video series. And every single video has a talk about the basics of Christianity. So the first one is, who is Jesus? And the next one is, why did Jesus die? And then what about faith? And then prayer. And if I keep going, I'm going to get the order mixed up. But there's about 10 of them. Yeah. And so lots of topics that sometimes you want to talk about with your friend, but you're not exactly sure how to have that conversation. Right. If you invite them to come to Alpha, quite simply, the talk is done for you, and you simply just say to your friend, what did you think about that? And you genuinely just sit and listen to what they're sharing, and then get the opportunity to share as well. And so I love that environment because it's no pressure, and really it's helping people feel valued because you care about what they think and what they want to talk about. And and so I think that it would be such a great thing if more and more people would be bringing people to Alpha. I keep seeing those who are already Christians coming and checking it out and saying, I want to see how good it is. It's good. So just invite friends and come and start to have those conversations.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, like I've done a couple Alphas, and I love them. And I love what the best part about Alpha really is seeing people's lives changed and seeing people who, even if it's not making a decision for Jesus in that moment, oftentimes it's even softening to the idea of what Christianity is about and the idea that maybe there's a God and even just breaking down the barriers of like, what is the church and just it starts that step into community. What would you say to a young adult who's maybe got a friend who maybe they're a classmate with or a coworker with who doesn't know Jesus, and they're like, hey, randomly inviting them to this like Alpha seems like a hard sell. What would you say to them as maybe some steps along the way that they could take to help make the invitation to an Alpha easier?
Well, first and foremost, you need to pray. Because God goes ahead of you and he starts to prepare a way, and he'll already start to soften their heart for it. And I think that when you do mention it, be very honest and just say, there's this thing going on at my church where they're going to talk about the basics of Christianity. I'm a Christian. Have you ever been interested in some of, are you interested in finding out more about Christianity? And letting them know that is what it's about, because you don't want to try and deceive them or anything. You want to be very truthful. And my own husband, when he first heard about this church and came to it, they happened to talk about Alpha. And this was many years ago for him, but when he first came, he actually just came because there was a home-cooked meal. He was a young adult, and he ate a lot of takeout. And he was like, oh, I get a free cooked meal, and it's really great. And so for him, that was a draw. So who cares what the draw is, really? It's an opportunity to sit and chat with someone.
That's so good. I know lots of people, especially young adults, it can be just hey, I want to have some friends who I can see each week. Not every young adult actually has a group of friends that they get to see every week. So having that environment where they can come and just be with people and be with people who love them and care about them and want to hear what they say and listen to them, I think is such a great way for us to show Jesus' love to other people. So I love that. How about tell us a little bit more about outside of Alpha, some of the other group stuff. You lead all of our, or not lead, I guess, but you help facilitate and oversee all of our Connect groups. Tell us a little bit more about what makes you excited and passionate about community. And this year in Young Adults, we've been talking a lot about community. We're moving towards making our Young Adult ministry more about community. What would you say to a young adult who maybe is struggling to step into community or maybe has reservations about it? What would you say?
Well, the Connect groups, we talk about how they have a goal, and the goal is twofold. So the first part of the goal is that you'll just notice spiritual growth. And so ideally, when you come together with other people, you're going to get to know them and you'll see them grow and even encourage that spiritual growth. The second part of the goal is that you'll care when tough things happen. Well, here's the reality. In this life, we're going to go through some incredibly difficult times. Obviously, that's no surprise. And actually, Jesus was very direct about it as well. He said, in this life, you'll have trouble. And I think people often get surprised when we go through something difficult, and they'll blame God for it, or they will just simply say, like, I don't understand why there's a time of suffering. But when you're with other people, suffering becomes manageable. We can actually continue to get through the day when I know someone is praying for me, someone is just present with me, and someone is helping me by meeting some kind of practical need. I know when my husband got diagnosed with cancer, it was my Connect group who came around and just brought me some meals. I had young kids at the time, so even just coming and watching my kids, like that kind of way that you can provide for someone, just show care, would really help us, especially so many of us that struggle with mental health issues and emotional health issues. So obviously even our spiritual health issues, these things are so connected. And community is actually what helps us get through those situations.
Yeah, that's so good. What do you think is maybe one of the biggest barriers that you see, or the biggest maybe excuse even that someone would have about not wanting to be a part of a group? Maybe they say, hey, I'm a Christian, come to church on Sundays for services, and I have some friends who are Christian, but I don't know if I want to be involved in like a Connect group. I don't know if that's necessary. What maybe would you challenge them with?
I wonder if it's fear that is something that needs to be overcome. Sometimes people just don't know what happens behind the closed door of that Christian. And so just being able to normalize and realize, oh, we authentically just hang out, we eat, we go for a drink, we do that kind of thing, and it feels comfortable and relaxed. And so overcoming that, I suppose it's just being willing to take a step to say, okay, I'm going to take a try at that and see it. When I encourage people to do groups, I say, just try it out for 5 times. Can you do just 5 times with that group and give it a try? Because I try not to use the words like commit to a group for a period of time. So no. All you're doing is just trying it out. I'm just going to try out that group and see what it's like. More often than not, you go and you feel the love of the people that you're with and realize that you are accepted how you are, and you just want to keep going back. And and it's fun. And so hopefully there is a willingness to keep going after you've tried it.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, our desire in young adults is that every single young adult would be a part of a group, and that they would, find true community there. And that wouldn't just be, I occasionally come on the weekend by myself to service and I listen to some podcasts, but that they actually could do life with other Christians and be in that deeper fellowship where, like you said, they can care when tough things happen. They can see people growing spiritually. They can work, through life together as young adults, because it's not easy always. And I love your heart for that. So thanks for helping our church step into that more. What would be kind of the driving passion behind a lot of what you do? You kind of shared a little bit about just your heart for people. Where do you think that comes from for you?
Well, my love for people, I'm highly relational, so I like just hanging out with people. And yet I would say I know how difficult that is for so many people. I happen to be married to an introvert. And so getting up out the door to go to group can be really difficult. But I just believe that God is a God of community. And in his Trinity, he models for us how to relate well to one another. And so as a follower of him, I know I can't do this life alone. One, I don't want to, but two, I feel like that isolation is actually a tactic of the devil. And so that's what keeps us from building strong relationships. And so it's worth fighting against him because we ought to try and live this life together.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a good insight to go, hey, like the enemy can actually use things like isolation to hurt us and to hurt our faith and our walks in this life. So, hey, you mentioned your husband and you met him. You said he did an Alpha like back in the day when he was young and all at the church. Want to just tell us a little bit more about your husband and what that relationship was like, you know, when you guys met?
Oh, sure. I'd love to talk about him. Okay, so my husband, he happened to be on the GO train coming back from a Jays game one time and heard someone talking about the church that they went to. So even though he's an introvert, he was drawn to the conversation because he was kind of at a low time even for himself. So he just asked, what's the church you go to? And at that time, this place was called Crothers Creek Community Church. So anyways, they told him, and it happened to be the worship leader. And so one of the worship leaders here at the time. And so he had given him a card and invited him to come out. It took a while for my husband to actually phone him up and say, okay, I'm ready to come. Can I meet with you? And he came here and checked it out, immediately heard about Alpha, attended Alpha. Actually met Jesus through Alpha, became a Christian, and then started going to the young adults. And so he was early 20s, and I had just started coming out to the young adults at that time. And he was starting to volunteer and was told he was needed to find some small group leaders. He found out I had gone to Bible college, so he introduced himself to me here at a young adults service, and then asked me if I would lead a connect group. And I said, sure. And he came into the group and we hung out in a group for about a year. And then the group was kind of ending a season of study. And that's when he asked me out. He didn't want to ask me out while I was still leading it. So, but anyways, and then we started dating after that and got engaged pretty quick after and got married pretty quick after that too.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. That's great. I love that story. So, well, I've appreciated this conversation, Ange. If people want to hear more about Alpha and were maybe interested in getting involved in the next round of Alpha, maybe inviting a friend or even serving if they've been a part of Alpha, or they'd love to even just, jump in, with 2 feet and maybe host a table. Yeah. What would that be like? Can you explain to them how they could get involved?
Yes, absolutely. We would love to see you involved. Actually, the incredible thing about Alpha is that it was designed specifically in mind thinking about a young adult male. And so they created the videos thinking, okay, if a young adult male would watch this and be interested, then we assume anyone else would actually be interested.
The hardest person to get to church.
Yes. Yeah. And so I find as well, if there were young adults involved, and that would actually help so many other people feel comfortable when they come. Knowing that a young adult is actually supportive and interested is comforting to us older people, actually. And so I would love to see people get involved. And there will be some sign-ups on the website. You can sign up to say that you're involved, that you want to get involved in Alpha. But you can also contact me at the church. I don't know if you need my contact information, but basically you can call the church or email the church.
That's great.
And I'm happy to help you get connected. Love to see young adults hosting tables, facilitating conversation. We will have training for that, so you don't feel like you need to know how to answer questions. Actually, the best thing is not to answer questions in Alpha. It's really to help people just have conversation. So it doesn't matter if you're brand new to faith. If this is really new for you, actually, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And it's after Easter, right, that we're doing our next
Alpha? We're going to start
Alpha?
on Wednesday night after Easter, so it'd be April 15th is the start. And it runs for about 10 weeks, and then there is one day event too where it's a bit of a weekend. And on that weekend is when we show all the videos about the Holy Spirit, so get the chance to introduce the guests to who he is.
Yeah. And, Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I was involved in Alpha this fall, and it was amazing just to see, people as they go through each week and conversation forums, and every time you start an Alpha, it's like, how is this going to work? This random group of people at this table, and then by the end, it's like, so like, we're hanging out after this still, right? Like this is, we're going to keep seeing each other. And I just think that's amazing to see happen each time. So I'd really encourage you young adults, if you have a friend who doesn't know Jesus, would you be praying for them now?
Yes.
In April, like Ange was saying, April 15th is when it's starting. Would you be praying throughout, March and April and consider, how do I want to invite this friend out? And you gave some great tips, Ange, on how to do that. So thank you. So yeah, let's get some young adults out to Alpha and see some lives changed. And thank you, Ange, for just sharing your heart with us today. Appreciate
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks.